today we're going to look at securing Windows. So obviously, last time we talked about network security, which is fine. We had the Windows Defender firewall and antivirus to protect against network threats. But today we're going to discuss what if the threat is not from the network? What if the threat is from other users on the system? What if the threat is the users themselves? So what am I talking about? I'm talking about things like, what if your users have a habit of going to websites and pop-ups and start clicking on them and then installing programs all of a sudden? Yeah, like we all know that's wrong, but I'm sure there'll be, like again, my mother. We all know it's wrong, but would my mother know that? Possibly not. She'll probably just do what the email says. She'll probably go click on that link and do what the email says because the email says it's from Combanks and it tells her to go here to reset her password. So why wouldn't she do it? Okay. So basically today we're going to look at managing user accounts, which we already have done, creating user accounts, but we're going to look at a little bit more in depth. We're going to configure what's called a UAC, the user access control, and we're going to look at implementing BitLocker. Okay, so let's discuss what's called Defenseindepth. Okay, the Defenseindepth involves applying multiple layers of security. Remember what I said a couple of weeks ago? Security is like Shrek. Because if you've ever watched that Shrek movie, Shrek is like an onion. It's got heaps and heaps of layers. So basically what we mean as far as layers in security, in IT specifically, is that not one device, one application, one feature will protect you against everything. Okay, but what you do have is firewalls, which protect you against traffic coming from the network. We have antiviruses, which protect you against malware and viruses. We have permissions to protect people against unauthorized access. And we've got this and we've got that, but when you add it all together, when all the layers mesh over each other, hopefully it's going to protect you against most things. There's never 100% protection against everything because all new threats are always being discovered, new vulnerabilities are always being discovered. But if we keep on top of updates and all this, we should be able to protect ourselves against most things, hopefully. Okay, and that's the aim. That's the aim. And then one of the things is you have to stay on guard. Okay, guarding against malicious users. So that's what we're talking about today. What if the intruder is not someone that's from the internet or from the network or from somewhere else? It's actually someone who's actually a legitimate user of your computers or your network. So guarding against a malicious user that breaches one or more of your security layers while trying to access confidential data. Okay, apply additional layers of security. So this is what the theory of Defenseindepth is all about. So let's actually look at user accounts. So what is a user account? A user account basically, so Nina, can you see the screen at all? No, there's a collaborate session that's on the securing Windows. You just have to click and join. Yeah, you just joined the Alex Zhao session, okay? Okay, if you can't get on, maybe just look at, what was your name again? Cameron's, oh, you got it? You got it? Okay, good. Sorry, guys. So we talked about user accounts. We've already created user accounts. A user account gives access to a computer for the user to access the computer, all right? There's what's called, but there's different types of user accounts. There's the local user accounts, which are the ones we've been creating, okay? The ones that exist on the individual Windows 10 computers. They're what's called local. And if you remember when we discussed this, local accounts are great for a small number of computers because if you want everyone to access the same computer, everyone has to have a local user account on that computer. But if you have 20 computers and you have 20 users, it means you have to create 20 users on 20 computers. Well, you can see that's 400 actions you have to do, isn't it? So local users are only good for a small number of computers and small number of users, like a small peer-to-peer network. Then we have domain accounts. Then that's what we have here at TAFE SA. And these domain accounts are actually accounts that lives in Active Directory. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of Active Directory, but that's something we're going to learn in the ICW subject, the install and configure Windows Server subject, and we'll save that for that subject. But domain users means that instead of creating on every computer, you create once in Active Directory, and every computer who's a member of the domain can be used by the user to log into the domain, in a nutshell. And there's more restrictions to come beyond that, but that's in a nutshell. Then there's the Azure AD. Okay, Azure AD is where, if you've never heard of Azure, that's basically Azure is Microsoft's cloud platform. Okay, you heard of the cloud? So yeah, I'm sure everyone's heard of the cloud here. Yeah, everyone's probably using the cloud. So it's a bit like your OneDrive and your Office 365 situation. You might notice that, hey, I can access Office 365, I can access OneDrive, and I can even access Learn, which is on the internet, but still using my TAFE-SA account. And that's because we've got our TAFE-SA domain accounts extended into the cloud through Azure AD. The AD stands for Active Directory again, okay? So domains are Active Directory, AD is Active Directory, and then there's the Microsoft accounts. So Microsoft accounts are like your Live accounts, your Outlook accounts, your Hotmail accounts, all those accounts that only exist on the internet. It's not part of the company you work for. It's those accounts that are linked to your online identity. It's similar to your Gmail, the idea of the Gmail or your Google identity. You notice that you go to many places. You can sign on by registering for a new account, or you can just sign in with your Gmail account or your Microsoft account. So those are accounts. Okay, so those Microsoft accounts are either exist across the internet on various platforms. But what we're saying is we can actually add Windows 10 supports the following type of user accounts. What does that mean? That means we can log into our Windows 10 with any combination of this, okay? You can be local accounts, you can be your domain accounts, which means your Windows 10 is in a domain. You can be Azure AD accounts, which means you log in with a work or school account. Or you can have Microsoft accounts, which is not linked to a work or school, it's just public, okay? So how do we do this? So basically, we can actually go to our settings again. Okay, this is on my real computer, so I have a feeling I'm going to be locked out on a few things because obviously the restrictions of our Active Directory computer here. So if we go to accounts, we can actually look at accounts, and you can see that if you look at what's showing in front of us here, it's showing us that this user, Alex Zhao, is actually TAFE-SA / Alex Zhao, which actually this means in the domain called TAFE-SA, there's a user account called Alex Zhao, and that's the account I'm using right now. And you can even see what type of user I am here on this computer. Okay, that's not across the network, that's only on this computer because we have what's called local admin access because of the things we need to do in our classes. But we can also add email and accounts. And this is where we can add a Microsoft account. Hey, Joanne, come on in, take a seat. We can add a Microsoft account. We can add a workplace or school account. So they're referring to this Azure AD and the Microsoft accounts I'm talking about here. So has anyone done that actually on their computer, their home computer? Have you added a school, work or school account yourself? No? You have, Nina? You're nodding your head? Yeah. So basically when you add a work or school account, you're actually using basically the work and school credentials. So the same username, same password to log into your account. And what's even better is that if you've got OneDrive as part of that account, it automatically has syncs OneDrive to you. So we can look at the sign-in options, but these are hidden from us. But basically, this is how we can actually log in, whether that's actually through biometrics with the Windows Hello, which is a fast and secure way of signing in. It's a bit like how your phone is always compared to phone because everyone's got a phone. You can unlock your phone with your face, your thumbprint, or something else. So with this Windows Hello, if you're obviously that depends on your hardware. On this computer I'm sitting in front of, there's no way I can set up this Windows Hello. Yep.
So just quickly, you're saying that if we link like our student account on
Yep.
the personal PCs at home,
Yep.
we can access OneDrive through like Windows Explorer.
Yes, bit like what I've got here. Okay. So you can see it's actually synchronized to this computer, and all my OneDrive files will be accessible from a Windows Explorer like I'm showing you right now. And like I showed you before, I can even go in here and share files with people. Okay. Yeah. So, and also I love OneDrive. OneDrive means that you're never lost without your files. Okay, and you don't have to have a million gigs of storage on your phone. You just have to have internet access in order to access your OneDrive. So yes, that's correct. That's one of the benefits. Another benefit is that you might be entitled to applications or deployments from your workplace that you can access as well. So we're talking about the sign-in options. We spoke about this briefly before, but this Windows Hello is all to do with biometrics. Okay, so things that you are, your face, your fingerprint, but you need to have the hardware. So like I was saying, on this piece of hardware that I'm sitting in front of today, there's no webcam, there's no fingerprint scanner, there's nothing that does those things. So I cannot enable this at all. And besides, my organization is stopping me from changing this anyway. But we can also add a PIN, personal ID identification number. We can use a password, which is what is a basic, is a minimum. And we can also use a picture password. Instead of actually typing something in, you're actually picking pictures out of a whole collection of it. And there's dynamic locks where Windows can lock when your device is paired to can lock when devices are paired to your PC go out of range. That's interesting. So for example, if I have a phone which is Bluetooth, okay, so its Bluetooth is on and my computers have Bluetooth, what it means that dynamic lock, what it means is that when my phone is in my pocket and I walk up to my computer and sit down, it's in range. They're going to pair up. So what that does is unlock the computer as well. But what if I walk away without forgetting to lock it? What it means is that if it can detect that this paired device is out of range, and it can be set to automatically lock your computer as well, which is a useful feature because trust me, I see it all the time as I walk through the office, people leaving their stations unlocked. I'm always tempted to jump on their computer and do something funny to teach them a lesson, but obviously that's a bad practice in the sense of security. That's what we're talking about, right? If you leave your computer unlocked and walk away, especially me, I'm not saying you guys would do anything in this classroom. I'm just saying I'm a lecturer, you're a student. My account gives me access to some things that a student definitely shouldn't be looking at, like other students' results, tests, or assignments, grading information, all that kind of stuff. If I left it unlocked, it leaves it open, the potential for someone like you guys to jump on and have a look at it. So that's the sign-in options, guys. So let's keep on going. So we can configure local accounts. So local accounts, we just add accounts to this computer, and like I think we've done that a few times now. We can do it for this settings area, or we can do it from the computer management area that we've done. Either way, you get local accounts. We can configure Microsoft accounts, and basically, if you look at this, if you look at these icons, these are all the things that you could access with your Microsoft account. Okay, so this is Office 365, OneDrive, Outlook, Skype for Business, Windows, I think that's Xbox Live, and this is online shopping, the Microsoft Store, and a few other things. Okay, I'm not even aware of some of these things that you guys would be, because you probably like Xbox Live. I've never actually used Xbox Live, but I'm sure you guys have. But basically, it uses your email and password of that Microsoft account. Like I said, very comparable to the Gmail account where you use to log into almost everything. So we said, helping secure the sign-in process, we said that we can actually sign in a variety of ways. Okay, Windows 10 includes a number of features that you can use to improve the user sign-in experience, like the Windows Hello, which is used that biometrics that we talked about, the Microsoft Passport, and the Credential Guard, which you know, as the name suggests, guards your credentials. We're going to talk about UAC now. So remember, like, so the whole theory between with UAC is, like you saw, I'm an administrator of this computer, right? It just showed me that when we looked at it just before. So let's go back there and have a look at it. So if we actually look at this, I'm an administrator of this computer in front of me. So what does that mean? That means that I could legitimately use my powers to actually do a lot of things, a lot of good things, a lot of appropriate things, but I could also use my powers to do a lot of things that would break the system or you know, access other people's data. Well, let's put it this way. This is my C drive. Every user who logs into this shared computer has a user profile. It's under C users. There it is. There's my profile. I can get in there as you normally expect because that's me. But let's pick someone. Let's pick someone who teaches this subject as well. Let's pick Craig Moody. There it is, Moody C. You see how I could access this, but it's actually going to say you don't currently have permissions to access this folder. And if I say continue, that actually means I'm going to raise my normal standard user access level to that of my administrator level. But it's prompting me, isn't it? It's prompting me because maybe this is something I don't actually want to do. Because if I do it, this is an example of accessing things, but it could be the same as modifying a setting. It could be the same as installing a program. They could be potentially dangerous in a couple of ways. It could be hurting the computer, or in this case, it's compromising access, isn't it? Because if this is a personal profile area of another lecturer and I click continue, and because I'm an administrator, oh, guess what? I can get in. But that's actually prompted me. And you know what? If you've set up auditing correctly on your system, that would trigger an event in the log so that even though I have access, it will be audited or tracked that I have access to it. So that's what I'm talking about with the UAC. UAC is user access control, is a security feature that simplifies the ability of users to run as a standard user. So we don't want to operate as administrator 100% of the time. Even though I'm an administrator, if everything I do and every second of the time I'm using my administrative powers, it just gives me or someone else on my behalf, without my knowledge, to do things on the system as administrator. So what am I saying? What I'm saying is if I accidentally clicked on a link and it triggers a script to run, it triggers a program to install, I wouldn't even know about it if I was running as administrator all the time and nothing popped up. But because I've got this UAC, it will pop up to say, are you sure you want to run this program? Because this program could make changes to your system or it could be dangerous. Well, if I've deliberately done that, then I'll click yes, and that's no problem at all. But if something popped up without my knowledge, then I would be saying, hey, why is this happening? I might cancel it. You see what I'm saying, guys? It helps you identify things that might be happening. So UAC does the following. It prompts users for administrative credentials if the task requires administrative permissions. You might have seen this when we did file access, because we didn't have necessarily the level of access last lesson. And when we tried to access a file, it prompted us to enter the password of an administrator or someone with power. And the next thing is UAC allows you to configure the control that a user has with respect to UAC prompts and consent. So when Windows 10, what happens when a user performs a task that requires administrative permissions? Well, a standard user gets a UAC prompt, so you have to supply the username and password. Let's see if I can trigger that on this computer, because I am a local administrator, but let's see if I can trigger that on this computer in front of me. So let's, oops, that's the desktop. This PC, sorry. So there it is. I was about to change the product key. Okay, that's a big deal, because if you change the product key to something that's invalid, you might lose your ability to get Microsoft updates. So you can see that's a user control. Because I'm an administrator, I have to just say yes. But if I was not an administrator user, it will prompt me for a username password to actually do that.
I don't think that prompt shows up on our screen.
On your screen when you're trying to do it?
Yeah, no, when you just shared on the screen, either it glitched out or
oh yeah. Oh, sorry. Yes, because it's actually, I see what you mean. Okay. Well, you should be able to see in the video. So basically, now it's gone black, right? This is what I'm talking about, guys. All right, because you can't see it, because what's happened is that it's actually, it's like pressing Control Delete. It's actually breaking the, halting the system, sort of doing outside of a normal session. So it can't be sort of hijacked by a process to do it behind the scenes. It's actually going to stop all the processes, sort of come out of it, and allow you to say yes or no. So yeah, you're right. So I forgot about that, because I was obviously, if this was on a projector, no problems. Okay, so that's what I'm used to. But because I'm sharing through that Collaborate, it is a problem. I think even me sharing it with that, sharing it with the Skype for Business might be an issue, because that's actually sort of coming out of the system, if you like, interrupting the whole system and allowing me to do that. So it's not going to be, so it's actually extra safe. So I think it's going to be the case when I try to change the computer name as well. I won't do it. So let's go back. So yeah, so that's the reason. So basically, standard users will be prompted for them to enter credentials of an administrative user. UAC prompts the user for permission to complete a specific task. So like I said, if you're not aware of this task being triggered by you, why would you let it complete? But if it's something that you want to happen, you can click yes and allow it to run. So how does UAC, how does it work? So tasks that require UAC elevation includes installing and uninstalling programs. So you can, as you can probably, let's imagine, installing a program, it could be dangerous. What if that program is going to break your system? What about uninstalling a program? Well, that could be equally as bad, because if you uninstall a program from a computer, and this is a shared computer, you're not uninstalling it just from yourself, you're uninstalling it from everyone who shares this computer. So same with installing a driver. So device drivers are notorious for crashing the system if they're badly written drivers. So therefore, if the average user, again, my mother, if they just click on this thing to install a driver, should they really be the ones doing that? Possibly not. Configuring parental controls. So this is to do more with home. You could have child accounts and adult accounts. Installing ActiveX. Anything like ActiveX actually is scriptable and programmatic. So installing an ActiveX control could be installing software that will break your system. Opening the firewall. So as we all know, the firewall is something meant to protect us. If we are actually opening the firewall and opening the firewall up, or making changes to the firewall, that is something that should only be done by an administrator who knows what they're doing, rather than the average user, my mother. Modifying the UAC settings itself. So UAC is meant to be there to protect you. So if an average user needs to, if you need to change that, you should be prompted. Hey, are you sure about changing this? What if this was happening because a malicious program was doing it behind the scenes on your behalf? That's what we're saying. Those things can always happen. There's like, for example, you think on this computer, what have I got open? I've got the control panel, I've got the PowerPoint, I've got the Word, I've got VMware, I've got Chrome and Sky for Business, and that's what as an average user, you think you've got open. When we look at the details of what's actually running on my system, you can see there's a whole heap of stuff that's running. So what you can see as far as what's running on your system is only like the tip of the iceberg, if you like. 90% of it's below the water, the iceberg. So what it means is that, hey, just because I can't see something that's running doesn't mean there's not a malicious program. I'm not saying that one is. I'm saying what doesn't mean that there's not a malicious program running in the background without our knowledge. And what if that is trying to do things? And if that's the case, well, this UAC is meant to stop us stop them from doing it based on our access level. So things like configuring remote desktop, adding and removing user accounts, yeah, that's pretty easy. If I'm an administrator, wouldn't it be so easy for someone to take advantage of my access and create another user account, which is an administrator? Well, which therefore gives someone else's access, right? So someone could be running a PowerShell script that adds another user. Well, that could be dangerous, couldn't it? Copying or moving files into the program files and Windows directory. Well, there's special directories. The Windows directory is where your Windows operating system is installed, and your program files is where the programs are installed by default. And putting files in there without your knowledge, without your permission, without your being aware of it is very dangerous. So again, UAC prompts you. Scheduling automated tasks. That should be obvious. Why is something being scheduled if you're not aware of it? And basically this UAC makes you aware of it. If you're silly enough to click yes regardless of it, that's on you. It's not on the system. Then the weakness is not the operating system. The weakness is the user. Now, well, they have a saying these days, it's easier to hack the nerd than to hack the operating system. What does that mean? That means they make users do silly things. It's easier to do that than to compromise the operating system, a well set up operating system. Restoring backups. That's definitely why are you restoring backups? If you are, then you need to make sure you are aware of it. Configure automatic updates. Well, wouldn't that be interesting if someone could cancel automatic updates or even configure automatic updates to go to a different source rather than the default Microsoft source? Browsing another user's directory. So you saw that that's what I did earlier. I went into another user's profile. Well, that means you can do it because you're an administrator, but should you be doing it? So what we can do is we can adjust the levels of this UAC setting. So basically, we can use the slide bar and we can look at how much it notifies. Okay, the default level. Let's actually open that up. So I can click start and type UAC. So that brings up this UAC settings. So choose when to be notified. I can change to never notify me, which you can see it's not recommended. So what does that mean? Applications try to install software or make changes to my computer. I make changes to Windows settings. So basically, all these things that's happening, I won't be notified. So potentially, my computer could be taken over by another person or another program, and it's doing these things to my computer. I wouldn't even be notified. That's not good. Slide to the next level up. This is still not recommended. Choose only if it takes a long time to dim the desktop on your computer. So notify me when applications try to make changes to my computer. Do not dim my desktop. Don't notify me when I make changes to Windows settings. Well, is it you? The question that you have to ask yourself, is it you that's making changes to your system? Or is someone else hijacking your permissions to make changes to your system? If I was just thinking purely from a point of view, why would I want to know about me making changes to my system? Because I know I'm making changes, right? But the point of this is not to notify you because it may not be you who's actively making changes to the system. It's something else. So we'll go to the next level up, drag it up, and this is recommended. Okay, so basically don't notify me when applications try to make changes to my computer. Don't notify me when I make changes. So this is recommended if you use familiar applications and visit familiar websites only. And then there's all of it. Always notify me. Okay, if you're highly suspicious or this computer's in a highly suspicious area, then this is maybe the setting you should have. If this is a public computer, there's a difference between a computer you share with other people and the computer that you use only for yourself. Let's change that. And again, you probably can't see this, but this UAC control is prompting me again. And I'll click yes. So we might, so let's quickly discuss this, so we don't want to spend too much time. I've already wasted our time a little bit today. So describe common security threats such as to data, such as users who access sensitive files to which they should not have access to. Okay, so if we're sharing a computer, there might be areas on the file system that we have access to, but we don't want other people to have access to. And we spoke about how we can adjust the permissions last week to actually control the access. But what if everyone's an administrator? What if the other person who's accessing this is also an administrator? How are you going to stop them? Can anyone think of any ways you can stop another administrator from accessing files? Well, the administrator, they got their own password. What do you mean by password protect? Sorry? Yeah, encryption. That's a good one. We're going to talk about that in a minute, okay? So if you don't know what encryption is where we scramble the content of the data so that it's not readable. It uses an algorithm or method to scramble it, but the thing that makes it unique is the key. So if you have the key, you can decrypt it, unscramble it. But if you don't have the key, it's just garbage to you. So you might have access to the file, but you can't actually read the file because it contains garbage. Okay, so good one. What about a competitor who gains access to your organization's sensitive files? That sounds pretty extreme, but that happens, industrial espionage. So again, how would you protect against that? Data that users publish in the internet, either inadvertently or intentionally. That's really people who are leaking data to the internet. Private information that your users utilize inappropriately, either inadvertently or maliciously. So there's always that, always that suspicious mind that we need to have from a point of view of security. Just because we would never do it, and the perfect user would never do it, doesn't mean that there isn't someone who's going to abuse their powers and do it anyway. There's always that type of risk. So in general, we have this, and in IT, we all have this principle of least privilege, which means you give people just enough permissions to access the files, the resources, the things they need to have access at that level to do their job. Okay, just enough to do their job. Anything more means they can abuse it and use it to compromise the system or do something that you don't want them to do. So that's the first thing. Discuss the possible ways of data exposure, such as, here we go. What if you have a laptop? I can see some of you guys have a laptop. No one today, but I know most of you do. What if you do have sensitive data that's on there and you're taking it around the place? You have USB sticks. Everyone's got USB hard drive. Everyone's got USB sticks. What if you got sensitive information on that? But then the laptop or USB sticks are stolen, or maybe your computers has a malware infection of the corporate network or devices, or it's accidentally released. So the first one, I think what you said before, encryption would be appropriate. If you encrypt your laptop, if it's lost or stolen, sure, they have the hardware. We can replace the hardware. It's a matter of doing an insurance claim, or even just going out and spending that money to buy it. But the data itself is protected. What about malware infection of your corporate network? Well, the worst case of things is the ransomware. We all know what ransomware is, don't we? That's where encryption is used by someone else to actually encrypt your data, so you can't actually access it unless you pay some amount of money, usually in Bitcoin. Okay, so if that happens to your system, and it was widely published a couple of years ago to the UK health system, how this, I forgot what the name of the virus it was. Sorry, WannaCry, right? Yeah, that's it. That they went around and encrypted this systems, and if you didn't pay the ransom, you wouldn't get your files, and that happens. That's been happening to people around the community as well. It's not a brand new thing, but what could you do to protect yourself against that? Can you think of anything we can do to protect against ransomware? Antivirus, yeah, that's the first thing. We'll protect the ransomware from being on the system. What if it's a brand new one? It's a 0-day attack, as they say. As in 0-day means you're the first person that gets attacked and no one knows about it. So therefore, your antivirus has not got the signatures for it. So what did you say? Backups, external, possibly even offsite. And with the advent of cloud, that's more and more possible. In the past, when we say offsite backup, it literally meant someone taking the backup tapes or files home with them, okay, or keeping it on another site. But these days, with the advent of the cloud, we can actually make backups all the time and store offsite easily. So if you have ransom and your data is encrypted, we could just wipe the system, reinstall a clean. I wouldn't trust that system again, first of all. Wipe it, reinstall it from scratch, and then restore the backups. Yeah, you're going to have a question? Depends on what your policies is for your organization. Okay, for the average person, like we're talking about on a user Windows 10, it's secure enough. Okay, and but if you were the customs, you were your responsibility was the customs for Australia, border control, and you're storing your data on the cloud. Is that secure enough for that? Possibly not. And what about data sovereignty laws? Because obviously we have certain laws in Australia that everyone is prosecutable if you break it. But what if the data is stored in Zimbabwe? Do those same laws that we have in Australia apply to the data that's stored in Zimbabwe? So that's another thing. So basically, I think you have to do an individual by individual assessment based on your organizational policies. Okay, if you're a small mum and dad business, the cloud is a good place to store it. And obviously, you would have to go for your own, cybersecurity risk assessment. So that's what we have to do here at TAFE. Anytime when we have to use a new service that's in the cloud, our cybersecurity has to go for a thorough risk assessment of that, where we want to store it. Okay. So let's keep on going. So the term mitigation, does anyone understand what the word mitigation means? Reduce the likelihood or reduce the impact, make less or remove. Okay, so when I say let's give you an easy example. Well, if you drive a car, there's a big risk of having a car crash, isn't there? And that's going to cost you lots of money. So what's a mitigation strategy? Buy insurance. Okay, buy insurance doesn't reduce your chance of having a car crash, but it reduces the impact of your car crash to your hip pocket. Okay, you just pay the excess instead of the full amount. That could be literally millions of dollars depending on who you crash or what you crash into. So mitigate is to reduce or remove the impact or the risk. Okay, so possible mitigation for common data related threats. So common data related threats include an unauthorized user access to information on a file share. Oh, unauthorized access. So that means you don't have the authorization. Okay, what can we do to actually reduce that effect? Okay, well, one of the things we already learned is set permissions. That would reduce the likelihood of someone being able to access files on the file share if they don't have authorization to it. If we just had it as open share and all this kind of no permissions, everyone can read everything at the minimum level read. So we set permissions. What about unauthorized user access to data from a lost or stolen USB drive? The first thing we have to understand, this first one, this second one, and the third one is sort of on the same boat. You got to understand that if someone has physical access to your hardware, whether that be USB stick, whether that be your computer, whether that be your servers, they own it in the sense that they can do whatever they like to it. Because I'll give you an example. If you lost your laptop and it's got sensitive information on there, you're going to say, hey, but they don't have a user account to log into my laptop, so they can't access it. Well, that's what you think. There's a couple of things we can do. We can actually reset your administrator password if we have a physical access to it by using a boot disk. We can actually take the hard drive out of your laptop, install it into my computer, and I'm suddenly administrator on my computer. If your laptop hard drive is just a typical hard drive, nothing else done to it, I could just access it as administrator on my computer now, can't I? So those 2 points I'll put in the same boat because my friend over there, Alice there, said encryption. So if you have data that's on something and you definitely don't want anyone to read it, encrypt it. That goes with going to the cloud. If you're going to upload to the cloud and this is so sensitive that you don't want anyone to access it and you care about it so much, you encrypt it before you upload it to the cloud. You get me? So what about user sends protected content in email to a unintended recipient inadvertently? Oh, that's a hard one. How can you stop that? Can anyone think of it? Not stop it, but at least reduce the risk of it. Can anyone think of any way? I guess no. This is very hard. This is a very hard one because this is actually a user action. So users obviously have access to that file, and the user can actually email it. Okay. Again, yeah. So again, this is very hard. So there's a couple of things you can try. Not saying that will be definitely the fixes. One is that you train your users. That's one of the easiest things to make your whole network or computers a lot safer, is that if every user was more knowledgeable. Okay, but the other thing that is all about, for all of these things, what it's pointing to is encryption. All of these things point to encryption. So therefore, what does that mean? If you have a file which you don't want people to access, even we can set permissions, but what if they're the administrator? Or if they're the administrator, but we still don't want the administrator to have access to the file, we encrypt it. Because encryption is now with a specific key, it's not user account necessarily. And same with this, if you have files which you're sending via email, you have unintended recipient. Well, if I encrypt it in the first place and then send the key or give the person key for another method, then the unintended recipient will just get an encrypted file. They won't get anything they can actually access. So what is BitLocker then? Well, funny that we talk about encryption, now we talk about BitLocker. It is the encryption that's built in to any Windows operating system. So if I turn this on, actually I shall not turn this on. I shall turn it off. I think it's easy. I'll just add another hard drive. So let's actually add another hard drive. So basically, what I'm going to try to do in this demonstration, you guys can all see my screen? Yeah. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a hard drive. Let's pretend this is a portable hard drive, okay? So this is a hard drive. I'm going to call it portable. And I'm going to put it on my desktop, okay? Just so it's like not part of any virtual machine itself. It's on my desktop. And I'm going to finish. Now I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to power it on. And this is my Windows 10 booting up like any other Windows 10. And then we will partition it and format it like what we did in the past, just so we can put data on there. Right, so bear with me, my computer's turning on. So what is BitLocker? BitLocker encrypts the data that is stored on your operating system and other volumes by providing offline data protection, protecting all data stored on the encrypted volume, verify the integrity of early startup components and boot configuration data, and ensuring integrity of startup process. BitLocker, and there's BitLocker to go. BitLocker is for internal hard drives. BitLocker to go is for external removable media. So let's actually think, so we all know what encryption is now, hopefully, but let's look at the last 2 points here. Verify the integrity of the startup component. Well, what if someone is trying to boot up with a USB stick, our computer? Well, we can all do that. We know how to change the boot up order. We stick our USB in there, and if we got a bootable USB stick, we'll be able to boot up with that. Then I'm in full control of this computer, aren't I? And the last point, ensuring the integrity of the startup process. So basically what this is doing is that with the combination what's called a TPM, which is a trusted platform module, it actually detects whether the hardware that you're booting up from is the legitimate computer. Okay, so what does that mean? There's a hardware component called a TPM, Trusted Platform Module. So BitLocker has the following hardware requirements. It needs a BIOS or UEFI environment that is compatible with the TPM 1.2, that's that Trusted Platform Module, or newer, or supports USB device during computer startup. So enough space on the hard drive for BitLocker to create 2 partitions. And basically during boot up, it's gonna, with the TPM, it's gonna locks the normal boot up process, startup process, until the user puts in a pin or inserts a USB drive that unlocks it. So what does that mean? That means, hey, you can't even turn this computer on without knowing the password. That protects that person from inserting their own USB stick and trying to boot up your system with their operating system. It also performs a system integrity verification on startup. So basically it's going to make sure that the system it's on is the right system and that everything is correct. But what if you don't have a TPM? For non-TPM mode, it uses group policies to allow BitLocker to work without a TPM and locks the startup process similar to TPM, but the BitLocker startup key must be stored on a USB drive. It provides limited authentication. So this seems extreme, as in like, why would you need this? But obviously it depends on your data. How important is your data? If it's not important at all, like these classroom machines, why do we even need this? But if this happens to be the laptop you're working on the secret recipe for Effie's confectionery, then maybe it's worth protecting it. Oh, okay, my computer's still starting up. That's a problem with having on a bridge network and NAT network. Does its updates. Let's keep on going. So group policy, we've mentioned that a couple of times now. So group policy is a way of configuring multiple computers, their settings, their registry from the server. Obviously, it refers to server. It needs Active Directory. So in this subject, we're not going to talk about that too much. In the future, we'll learn about server, and through that, we'll learn about group policy when you get to it. But just to know that group policy provides the following settings. We can turn on BitLocker backup in Active Directory domain services. We can configure recovery folder on the control panel's setup. We can enable advanced startup options on control panel setup, and we can configure encryption methods and prevent memory overwrite on restart. Configure TPM validation method used to seal BitLocker keys. Oh, come on, 30% only, that's not good. All right, so what about recovering BitLocker encrypted drives? That's always a problem. So what if you forgot the password? What if your employee who BitLockered that laptop has left the organization and they forgot to unlock it for you? BitLocker, when BitLocker enabled computer starts, BitLocker checks the operating system for conditions that indicate security risk. If a condition is detected, BitLocker enters a recovery mode and keeps the system drive locked. The users must enter the correct recovery password to continue. But what if? Well, the BitLocker recovery password is a 48-digit password, so 48 characters, basically what it means. That unlocks the system recovery mode and is unique to a particular BitLocker encryption. But this can be stored in Active Directory domain services, and if it's stored there, you can search it by using either the drive label or the computer's password. So basically, it means if you, in general, if you lose your password for encryption, you're sort of hurting yourself, aren't you? This is really for a domain system where these computers are a member of the domain. So besides having a user key, there's actually this recovery key that is stored in Active Directory. But if your computer is not part of the domain, it's never going to have this as part of it. You had a question there, Reese? You look like you're about to ask a question.
I was just thinking, say for example, you lose the password, password.
Yeah.
Basically, whatever's encrypted is just
It's going to do its job, right? No one's going to be able to access it. But unfortunately, that's doing its job. So it's like, it's not like one of those websites where you can recover your password. So this is obviously encryption is very strong, and it's a specific way of protecting yourself. But at the same time, just like a gun, it can be used for the right way or it can be used for the wrong way. Okay, it's how your user now. If you encrypt something and you don't know that you forget the password, what can you do? You can call the FBI. They might be able to decrypt it. As I think if you have an Apple device, the Apple people might be able to decrypt it, but who's to say? Okay. But anyway, getting back to our demonstration with the BitLocker. So I've installed that additional hard drive, if you remember, and I'm going to log in as this user. This is an administrator user, by the way. So bear with me. It seems like it's always slower. So if you remember, with a new hard drive, we have to partition it and format it and then be able to store files on it. So if I go to disk management, it should pop up that I've got a new device. There it is. Do I want to activate it? Okay. Go away. Do I want to initialize the disk? Yes, I do. Remember, we had the choice of MBR, master boot record, or GPT. GPT for bigger than 2 terabyte disks, and MBR for smaller. So MBR is fine for our purposes today. Here's online. It's unallocated. So, but we need to create a volume. We'll call that portable hub. We'll call that portable hard drive, okay? And we'll finish that. All right. No problems. That's done. Now it should be ready to actually put files on there, like a whole heap of files. Let's go to my C drive, downloads folder, and we'll just copy all these smallish files. If we'll just put it here as example files, a whole heap of them. Okay. And basically, let's just pretend this is our super confidential, if we're Earthy's confectionery, this is our sales strategy, our secret formula, and everything that's super important, okay? So, let me just do something first, okay? So this is importable. Okay, I'm gonna shut down this computer now. Let's shut down this computer. What I'm trying to demonstrate is, what if this is a portable hard drive? If it's a portable hard drive, it means that I can actually unplug it from one hard drive and plug into another hard drive, couldn't I? I could actually add another, I can't do that because it's off. It's suspended, sorry, I'll discard that. I could just add to another computer Doesn't matter if it's a portable USB hard drive or a hard drive that's in your laptop that someone's taken physically out. I can add to another computer, and instead I'm going to add an existing disk. I'm going to browse, and if you remember, I put it on my desktop, didn't I? I put it on my desktop. There it is, portable VMDK. And I'm going to finish. Is unencrypted, cannot be used. Oh, this virtual machine itself is a bit annoying. So I'm going to, so if you remember, this virtual machine was encrypted, a part of my demonstration for encryption. So the problem is every hard drive is encrypted as a result, which is another type of encryption. You know what? I can't be bothered waiting for this. I shall just, so let's take this and I will just clone it again. We'll create a link clone, and that's probably as fast as creating removing the encryption. So I'm going to edit this. Like I said, this is a different computer now. I'm going to add a hard drive, but in this case it's the existing hard drive, and that hard drive is that portable hard drive that I've removed from one computer. Sorry, it's desktop. Was it? Sorry, where is it? You saw it? It was there. Here it is anyway. And it's that portable hard drive. Okay, now it's okay. Now I'm going to power it on. Okay, so I'm just turning it on, and I just want to show you what happens if you just take a hard drive from one computer and put it into another computer. I'm sure everyone can guess, and I'm guessing everyone will know that we can just access it, because that's what you guys have been doing all the time. You guys have, come on, you guys have been taking a USB hard drive, plug into a computer, and you're able to access the contents of that USB hard drive. Okay, so here it is. If we go here, here's that portable hard drive. There's all that files. Look, I can read it. No problems at all. All right, let me just turn off this computer now. Obviously, the hard drive can only be used by one computer at a time. This one's still got the portable hard drive plugged in. Sorry about it's so annoying when you have to wait for something to happen in your demonstrations, but unfortunately that's the only way we can demonstrate it. And now I'll go back to the original machine and I'll do something to it. Come on, let me log in. Finally. All right, so this time what I'm going to do, instead of actually just leaving the hard drive as just a hard drive with volume and files on there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on BitLocker. All right, so we can turn on BitLocker in one of many ways, but the way I'm going to do it today is I'm going to right-click on this computer. I'm just going to simply select turn on BitLocker. And basically, I'm going to set a password, and I will set a password of password 1 for our demonstration purposes only. Never use password 1. That's probably in the first one on a dictionary attack is password 1. I can also tell it to use my smart card to unlock the drive as well. That's basically having a certificate on your smart card. I'll click next. I can save to a file. This is the recovery key that I'm talking about. So I'll save to a file and I'll put it on my desktop. Do you want to save this? Yep. All right. And next, encrypted disk space, faster, best for new drives. So basically, this is basically encrypting just the files I'm using, space I'm using, or the entire drive. I'm going to go for quick and easy today. Start encryption. And that's going to take a bit. And now you can see hopefully you can see, there's a little lock symbol on that drive. And if I go to properties, we go to general, you can see there's a lock symbol there as well, okay? And now I can manage BitLocker, change the BitLocker password. If I wanted to, here's that recovery key. And basically, here's my 48-digit recovery key if I ever lose my password. Okay? So that's totally different to the password I set, wasn't it? So remember, the password I set was password 1. This is the recovery key. All right, let's close that. Let's turn off this virtual machine again. So now, what if that was a laptop and I lost it, someone stole it? They can't get access to the laptop because they don't have a username password. So what they've decided to do is take the hard drive out and put it in their computer, which is here. It's that second hard drive. Oops, I don't want to open it. I'll turn it on. So I'll turn it on, and I am now the devious person who stole your laptop. I'm about to access your super duper secret files like the recipes of Earthy's Confectionery, and I'm going to learn how come your lollies taste better than my lollies and do a bit of industrial espionage. I'm getting a bit dramatic, I know, but it's something to do while it's loading. But let's see what happens. Okay, so hopefully all of you, knowing that BitLocker encrypts the drive, should have a theory. Your theory, what's your theory? Can I access that files now? No. Okay, good. Let's test it. So, like I said, IT is not an art subject. It's not about feelings or opinions. It's about theories, experiments, and proofs. So if I open up my drive, there's my E drive. You can see there's that lock symbol still. Okay, it means it's encrypted. Whoa, I don't know. Well, even though let's think about this again, okay? So let's think about this again. This is actually literally a clone of the original computer. And the user account I've just used to log into this computer is the same user account I logged into the previous computer. But it still prompted me for a password, isn't it? To decrypt it. And, well, sorry, I don't know the password. Blah, 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 blah. Let's see if it unlocks it. No, it's incorrect. Let's say I really lost it. Oh, it's on this computer, isn't it? I could enter that 48-digit recovery key if I wanted to now. Okay, so this is the identifier that was part of the key. We could just enter it now in here, and we can't. But if I actually know the password, I am a legitimate dude who just wants to access these files on a different computer because it's a portable hard drive. I put in the right password, and now I can access the files again. So permissions protects against people accessing it without the right permissions, but permissions doesn't work if you happen to be the administrator. So encryption protects your files against anyone. Okay, as long as you have the key and they don't. So we'll leave it there, guys. We'll leave it there, and there's a worksheet to go on with for today, but obviously